So some of the most challenging dimensions of law have to do with what its point of departure is. I call that a baseline. What's a baseline, you might ask? Let me give you a couple of examples about the difference a baseline can make in terms of how we think about different kinds of actions. So let's say that you are an enslaved person. Let's say that you decide, you know what, this whole idea that my labor belongs to somebody else because of the fact of my birth as a Black person in this society, later for that. I'm out of here. And you escape, you run away. How do we characterize your action of running away legally? Well, it all depends on the baseline. So if the baseline is enslavement, legally justified enslavement, your running away is going to be characterized as theft. You have stolen yourself from the person who owns you. That's a legal concept. The law says your seeking freedom is theft. Now, let's change the baseline. Let's say the baseline is not enslavement, but the baseline begins from a premise that all people are free, that all people who are subject to some form of enslavement have a right to their freedom. Your running away under that baseline is self-help. You are actualizing your God-given right to liberty, to freedom. So the baseline made all the difference in the world as to whether you could be hunted down and recaptured and taken back to slavery, or whether once you are free, you have a right to stay free. Now, the problem with our Constitution is that it permitted enslavement to not only attach to your individual self in a state of slavery, but even if you managed to escape, the southern states were able to extend their reach all the way to wherever you happen to be, to say you are still a slave and we can take you back. That's the problem with the Constitution's embodiment of enslavement. The fact that it permitted it also allowed it to be extended all the way into northern states that had to stand by and allow some of its own citizens to be captured, either by mistake sometimes, or actually people who had escaped. So the whole point in Reconstruction was to shift that baseline away from the idea that enslavement and all of its dimensions were perfectly constitutional, to say that the whole system was rotten. We're going to dismantle it root and branch. That includes all the discrimination on the basis of race that helped facilitate it. It included all the laws of property and contract that allowed for the ownership of human beings, and all of the race-based ideas that said Black people were uniquely enslavable. So the broadest concept of constitutional reform is we're going to go through and erase all of this stuff. That's what the freedmen hoped and believed. That's what many of the framers leaned to. And that was a vision that did not sustain itself over time. That's why we need a new constitutional imaginary to recapture that idea and to build it out to include other forms of inequality as well.